Well, I don't often talk about country music around these parts, but I am a fan. I like all kinds of music, man. Like I'll listen to country, I'll listen to rock and roll, folk. I like me a good folk festival now and then. I like classical. I like especially the Baroque period. I like indie music, like like Elliott Smith. I like Nirvana. One of my favorite musicians is Father John Misty. If I'm talking about country music, though, I like stuff like George Strait, Brooks and Dunn, uh, Willie Nelson. Uh, which brings me to Jason Aldean. Aldean, Jason Alderon. Now, trending on Twitter and the news cycle and all that shit. Jason Aldean has a new song called "Try That in a Small Town." It had a very provocative music video filmed outside of a courthouse where a famous lynching occurred. The song itself is very like in the tradition of country music. God, guns, and beer. It's the idolization of the perfect utopian small town, right? Try that in a small town. The video shows protesters destroying things and acting like assholes and stuff. It's basically the theme of the song, whether or not you think that there are racist dog whistles baked into it. The theme of the song is that in the big cities, everything is a fucking hellish nightmare. Whereas in the small town, everything is great and good. Now, the reason that I am personally turned off by this kind of black and white portrayal of the world is because I appreciate nuance and I prefer that we treat one another with empathy and compassion and open-mindedness, right? From my experience, both small towns and big cities have their fair share of problems. I've lived in cities of different sizes. I've lived in Seattle. I've lived in Vancouver. I've lived in Denver. But I was born in Bozeman, Montana, which at the time would qualify as a small city or a large town. Small town, what is the definition of that exactly? I mean, Jason Aldean was born in Macon, Georgia. Macon? I don't know how to say that. I can never pronounce things. It's because I read everything and I don't watch a lot of stuff. That's bigger than where I live now, Flagstaff, Arizona. That's not a small town by any definition of the word. It's a small city. He now lives in Nashville, Tennessee, which is a large city. He is a city slicker. He's a performer, so I get it. You have to ham it up, right? But he's not a cowboy, and he's not a small town guy. He was not born in a small town. He was not raised in a small town. He does not actually speak for people who were born and raised in small towns. Now, I've been to some small towns. My ex-wife was raised in a small town, a small Mormon town, and it sounded absolutely like hell on earth. Many small towns sound like hell on earth, full of just because there's several reasons. There's nothing to do when you're a kid. Everybody knows everybody, for better or worse. People can be really close-minded in small towns. Don't get me wrong. Like, if I had all the money in the world, I'd probably live. You know that movie Ex Machina? He lives on this property in the middle of nowhere, but it has Wi-Fi. That's what I would do. Like, if I had my way, I would live in the smallest town possible, in that it would be a compound that I own and no one's around. And my deliveries would come via, helicopter. But that's just me. I would never want to live in a small town, like a really small town. There are some serious disadvantages to this. Now, granted, again, cities have their own problems. Higher crime rates. Not that small towns don't have crime, but higher crime rates. These days, if you go to places like Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, the tent city problem is a real issue. Homelessness. A lot of these cities. I'm not a law and order guy. Like, I don't think that the best way to combat mental health issues or drug addiction is just like locking people up and throwing away the key. But you do need police. You do need law and order. You can't just let these horrible problems just fester and just think that, oh, by treating people with a soft touch, everything's going to be magically better. You don't have to spend any money. You don't have to spend any effort. No. So there's problems in the big cities. There's problems in the small towns. Try that in a small town. Look, like there's a reason people leave small towns. There's a reason people leave rural areas. There's many reasons. A lack of opportunity, a lack of jobs, the ability to grow your wealth, the lack of culture, the lack of good restaurants, coffee shops, concert venues. I mean, the lack of diversity. I mean, like one of the best things about living in Vancouver, British Columbia when I was a kid is that I had friends who were from Mexico City, from Tokyo, Japan, from all over the world. 3 of my best friends were from Edmonton, Tokyo, and Mexico City when I was in 4th and 5th grade. I mean, and that level of like cultural awakening from a kid from Bozeman, Montana was huge for me in so many ways. I mean, I played video games in Japanese. I was introduced to all kinds of food that I'd never eaten before. My family was not very well to do at all. My dad was a teacher. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, and then my dad was going to university, so we had literally no money. So it was great to be around people who, my best Japanese friend who didn't speak any English, but we were still friends. His dad was like a bridge engineer. He would architect of bridges across the world. They were very well to do, and they had. I ate food. This Japanese like food that I'd never even heard of before, and it was incredible. I didn't like all of it. I was a little picky, but some of it was amazing. The ability in a city, like I love cities, right? I love going. I've been to a bunch of cities. I've been to London and Paris and Barcelona, Vancouver, Toronto, New York City, San Francisco, Los Angeles. All these places, all these cities I've been to they're so incredible. I don't know if I'd want to live in them because they're so big and I hate traffic. But just the amount of culture, the amount of different people and kinds of people, that's what makes these cities so wonderful. And then small towns, I've been to lots of small towns that I have also really enjoyed. I remember we have a log cabin up in Montana, and it's in a town that barely has a dot on the map. I remember going to the little local bar when I was up there last time, and it was a bunch of old timers in there. They gave us pretty sour looks when we walked in because I look like a fucking hippie. But pretty soon we were all chatting, having whiskey, and having a good old time. Now these people and I probably don't share many, or we probably have we probably share many cultural values, but we also probably disagree on some pretty fundamental facts. But we could sit around and we could have a beer and talk and hang out. I did the same thing in Ireland when I was up there a few years ago. I was at a Connemara National Park, and it was just raining so hard that there was no way I was going to go hiking. So I hung out all day in a little pub, hanging out with these great old timer Irish people who probably were culturally so different than me, but we had a great time. I had a great time. That was a small town. Small towns, big cities, what the fuck? The whole concept, I think what rubs me wrong about this video is not that I think he's some like monstrous racist or something, but I think the last thing we need is this constant divide between people, between Republicans and Democrats, between conservatives and liberals. I'm about to never use the word woke again because now it really just means liberal, I think. Like, I used to be able to critique woke politics because they are not a very good representation of my own left politics. But now it just means liberal. So anyways, the point is, we don't need songs like this. I mean, fine, whatever. We need all kinds of songs, and I don't begrudge him for producing it. He didn't write this song, he just performed it, but whatever. Recorded it, whatever. We need more. We need to remember that there are still more things about us that are the same than the things that divide us, and that ultimately, and here's my real my leftist side coming out. Ultimately, it's a class divide more than a cultural divide. Identity politics are a mistake. because they are used by the rich and powerful to divide us amongst ourselves while we fight over the table scraps. And they laugh all the way to the bank or the hedge fund or whatever. When I go to a big city, or when I go to a small bar, little dive bar in a small town, I find radically different people. But I also find that I can connect with those people on a human level, regardless. I mean, there's always going to be a place where you run into somebody who you just do not connect with. But man, I've spent the night at a Hispanic drug dealer's house, and in the morning he cooked us eggs, and they were delicious. And I've been all over the world, and I have hung out with all sorts of different people. I've been in very sketchy situations. But I've always found that there is just more about us that is the same than that is different. And so, when I see a song or hear a song like this, I just think this is not the right approach. And I prefer someone like Kenny Chesney, whose songs tend to be very unifying, as opposed to this. Also, I just think this song's garbage. It's just, hear me out on this, okay? Modern country music, with a few exceptions, is just so poppy. It's overproduced, and it doesn't sound like country to me. Like, this song, it's got a little twang to it, but it almost feels like it's machine twang, if that makes sense. Like, it's so overproduced and it's so glitzy. It doesn't sound like country music. Like, when I think country music, I think of like a little more of a hoedown, like music you can play in a barn. That's not to say you can't use electric guitar or whatever, but this sounds like pop to me, not country. Again, I'm more of a Brooks and Dunn, George Strait type guy when it comes to a little bit older country music. I'm more fan of folk music, and I like to hear country that has mandolin, banjo, all that stuff, fiddle. Anyways, that's my take on this whole controversy. I think that CMT was stupid to pull the video simply because it's kind of martyred this multimillionaire city slicker country musician. Now there's the whole boycott CMT thing going on, and it's like the Budweiser thing all over again. Never let it be said that woke liberals are the only ones who truck in outrage politics. Outrage is the currency that all sides of this culture war trade in, and it's all deeply silly to me. In the end of the day, if this was a better song, maybe I wouldn't care so much, but it's just not. It's pretty bad. What can you do? All right, thanks for watching. I know this is a little off our normal topic, but I want to do a little more politics and a little more, subjects outside of TV and movies and video games, the occasional music and comic book and everything else. So, I can't play this song here. You can look it up. I don't recommend it. Go listen to some better country music. There's so much out there. All right, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment. Peace.